all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is the reality. There is a world outside of me that he could change his mind and have access to at any time. And I can't control that. Even if I'm the best wife in the world, he still might want that. And that was scary.
Hello and welcome to the Complex Couples Podcast. I'm Heidi. I'm a couples therapist and relationship coach specializing in mixed orientation marriages and mixed gender identity relationships. Whether you're just discovering this reality or you've been on this journey for a long time, this is the space where your marriage matters, your values matter, and your choices matter. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Complex Couples Podcast. Today, we're going to talk a little about some of the difficulties of disclosure. I had someone reach out and say they would like to know a little bit more about what was difficult early on. And I think it is sometimes easy to think that we've always been in this place where how we are now and forget how we were then. And so today we're going to try to kind of step backwards and talk about some of the hard things that in a little more depth. So I'll start with asking you some questions. And Daniel's here with me today. Sorry, Daniel, I didn't even introduce you, but welcome again.
Well, thank you. It's so good to be back with you.
So, I'm going to start with you. And we're just going to each pick one hard thing because there's multiple we could talk about. We're going to pick one. So what was one hard thing when you came out to me as far as like post-disclosure? I know there were hard things leading up to that, but we're talking post-disclosure.
Yeah, happy to answer that. I think, just to set it up real quick for those who haven't listened to everything. So I came out to you in 2020. And so it's been a little over 5 years, right? And so to your point earlier, I think sometimes we forget quickly what it was like. And, as you and I talk, oftentimes we talk about where we are today, but things have changed and evolved. And it was a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
I think to get to where we are today.
I agreed.
So, I think in a previous episode, I talked a little bit about coming out and like the process and some of the questions and things we talked about. But I think if you ask me a question like what was difficult, I think in many ways, being open and being able to speak more freely about my experience was actually really great at the same time. And it felt really freeing to me. I think sometimes when you feel hidden or trapped or something for a long time, when you do feel like you can talk about it the first time, it's a pretty amazing feeling, right? It feels really great for you. I think what was probably a little hard for us is that it wasn't a relief for you, right? This wasn't information that you were able to kind of get off your chest. This was brand new information for you. And so I don't think I expected it to be really easy. I expected us to be able to work through it. And there were some things that I probably should have anticipated that I hadn't fully thought through.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking how nervous you actually were when you told me. I don't think it was a very easy thing.
Well, no, you're super scared. I mean, I didn't really think that things would dramatically change or anything, or that like all of a sudden you would decide that you weren't interested in being in this relationship, but that was a risk.
And you did,
right?
I mean, to some degree, I do remember you kind of saying, I understand if you don't want to be here now that you know this, right? Like that was something that was present. But for the most part, I think because of things I had said prior to that, I think that you probably had to know there wasn't a huge
Yeah, I mean, I didn't
risk.
think that was the most likely outcome.
Right.
Did I think it was a possibility? I had to think that it was a possibility,
Right.
but I didn't think it was a likely outcome of it. But I'm a fairly private person, especially when it comes to like my personal feelings and what happens inside my head, And so I think that what was probably more of a struggle with me is just the amount of time that was needed afterwards to answer your questions and to really support you and be there for you during that time period. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes when we talk about the timing and order of things, like I think it was for me personally, should be different for everyone, right? Not everyone's the same, but I think it would have been challenging for me to have been taking care of myself and trying to figure some things out. I still have stuff to figure out, but if it had been all brand new to me at the same time it was all brand new to you, that would have been challenging for me. Like if I had like, cause what I did, I think when I started the process of working through it, remember we talked about, I told a friend about 5 years before I told you, like there was still a lot for me to mentally grapple with
Right.
and try to figure out.
Right. So yeah, what I was going to clarify is just that when you say work through, meaning work through as far as like finally allowing yourself to say it out loud.
Yeah.
And to actually come to
Well,
terms.
and just to think about what it means and like, how do I want to handle it? And like, what choices do I want to make around it? I think for a long time I had kind of just suppressed all that stuff and didn't want to engage in it. And so yeah. So again, a lot that happens inside my head.
Right.
It's really probably what was happening. And so this is a really long way to answer your question. What was, I think, somewhat challenging for me, I think was, just having to talk about it so much. And I think it took a while, I would say the 6 months after, well, days, if you added up all the time.
Like, every day is what I meant.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you look at
daily.
like the 6 months afterwards, I think it just took a lot of time. And I think the other thing I'd love to hear, how you experienced it, but like I tried to be patient and recognize that you needed a lot of like discussions and time. But sometimes it was definitely frustrating for me when I thought that we had worked through
exhausted
concerns
a topic.
or like,
right.
Or, concerns or things that you were, worried about. And then to recognize that we had to do it all over again.
They would come back up. Yeah. Yeah. Do you think you were anticipating that I would ask as many questions as I did?
I probably hadn't thought through it enough, so no.
But
I hadn't it's not like I knew you well enough to know that this wasn't going to be a like, hey, I'm attracted to dudes, and you would be like, okay, sounds good. like that you were going to want to understand like everything about it.
Right.
So,
I would say that you showed up like you anticipated that. Meaning you really did give me a lot of time and space. As a matter of fact, sometimes I wonder how.
Because I kept my job?
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
I did. It was a rough 6 months. Luckily, we were in COVID and my travel schedule wasn't nearly as demanding.
True. That's right. Okay.
Right. So, had it been any other time, I think it would have been really hard.
Right.
But because I wasn't required to travel anywhere, there was more flexibility in my schedule and I was able to, work during the day. And if we had a longer lunch, I could just work later at night. So there was enough flexibility there that allowed for it. But that was one of the, I guess, little mercies that we experienced with that part of our life, is that I was home.
Yeah, that's very true. And I definitely felt like you knew I don't know if you knew, but I just felt like you were there for me. Like you definitely seemed to be aware that I was going to need additional support, that I was going to need you by my side a lot more than usual, which was very much appreciated. But I think I did probably surprise you with how many questions I had and how in depth I wanted to go. I would say that was probably not.
Yeah. And I think for me, there were definitely some learnings in it, right? Because I wanted to make sure that I was fully transparent and, we were able to answer your questions. At that point, I do think that at times it was a little challenging to know what to say and, how much to disclose. I think there were some things that we had to figure out that time period.
Yeah. As far as what is important to reveal, what might be important to keep private, kind of that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
I just think that, one thing is it seemed it was this new topic, right? Almost like a shared interest, and you will do you think that guy's attractive? What about that actor? And I think some of those things, when I thought through it eventually, I was like, I doubt there are a lot of spouses in I don't even know what to call the opposite of mixed orientation marriages. Yeah. Whatever the opposite is of us. It's not like the guy runs around and points out all the beautiful women that he sees on the street.
Right.
And so I think it was some things like that I wondered if we probably should have, I should have censored a little bit, which we figured out.
Yeah. I think there was some of my questions were wait, I remember watching The Greatest Showman and being wait, is he watching Zac Efron or Zendaya?
Right?
Yeah. During this scene, and and
I think they're
how
probably both pretty amazing in
they,
some of those
I mean,
things,
I'm
and so
watching
it was
them
fine.
both, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
So,
I think it was great,
but yeah, just sometimes it was simple questions like that. But I do think I really wanted to understand what this meant. And I do think some of these things were things that you really hadn't thought about. Is that fair to say?
yeah,
There
probably.
were some questions that you really were like, I don't know. I just know
Yeah.
it works, but I don't know how. Or
Well, and for me, some of that was frustrating too, right? Just because I don't need to understand like why everything is the way it is. I mean, there's some things that I think because of some of my experiences in life, and I think some questions I've had about religion and just how things work in the world, I've come to a conclusion that some things just can't be known. And I've come to peace with some of that. And so there were things about this experience that I had come to peace with, and I didn't necessarily understand how they worked. And you were really interested in understanding how everything worked. And again, I had come to the conclusion that some of these things were unanswerable. Like, why am I attracted to men? Like, I don't know. I have no clue. And I reject so many theories of why this happened. I didn't have a bad childhood. I didn't have any sexual trauma when I was a youth. I didn't have an absent father. I mean, there were all these things that people try to look on this. And so I had come to the conclusion of, I think it just is, and I think you were really interested, and not necessarily directly in that topic, but understanding why.
Yeah.
And you were interested in well, how does it work between us? Like, why?
Yeah. How is it that you're attracted to me and that we don't have sexual issues if you're attracted to men? Like, that was hard for me to make sense.
That was hard. And I think you wanted to drill in me to figure it all out. And I was like, I don't really know why. Like,
Right.
I have a really strong belief that we get to determine how we behave in life and what we're able to choose. I don't really think that we get to choose the experiences that we have.
Right.
I strongly believe that I didn't choose this experience necessarily. But I strongly believe I get to decide what I do with it every day. And so I had those type of beliefs, but I don't know if they think I was able to answer all your questions.
Right.
So
Some questions I think were harder for you than others. And I think that a lot of them came from things people would say or things I would hear or other people's words. And then I would say them to you. And I think the hardest questions for you to answer, or the hardest space to sit in, was when they were actually really insulting things. And they weren't very understanding or compassionate towards either same-sex attraction or you being in a relationship with me.
I think
Things like that.
so I actually think was more challenging for me around that is I have spent my whole life around insensitive comments and people saying things that I don't necessarily agree with and were hurtful. And so I think I was comfortable with a lot of that stuff. I think what was challenging for me was to navigate your discomfort around it. It was so I wanted you to be comfortable and I wanted you to understand, I think, what was happening. And so I think when you would come kind of unsettled by things that other people said or did, that was challenging for me because I kind of felt that it sucked me into some emotionally difficult spaces that I think I had done a fairly good job of avoiding in my life or stepping outside of. And all of a sudden, we're in a situation where you were, I think, questioning me or questioning our relationship based on what someone else said. And I think I had gotten used to not worrying very much about what other people said and thought at that point. And so part of it was I wanted to be understanding and patient with it. But I know there were some moments, especially once we had worked through things a couple times, that would get, somewhat challenging for me.
Yeah.
It would feel kind of exhausting.
Yeah. So I would say, to wrap that up, just recognizing anytime you have two people in a relationship with different desires, different triggers, different insecurities, it's going to be hard to cater to both of them. Like, I think that it's hard to open yourself up to answer questions or to move into things that maybe you could avoid before, and now you're having to actually look closer at it and explore it with someone, and especially when you've done it alone, and it's easier alone sometimes.
Part of it's easier alone, right? I mean, I think sometimes it's really nice being able to share and be with someone. But I think it's easier to, in some ways, to navigate one person's feelings instead of two at the same time, right? And so I think that that's probably what was easier.
Yeah.
Alone.
Yeah, but I'm glad to hear that there was something about doing it together that was meaningful to you too. That it wasn't all just.
No, I mean, there were definitely things
hard.
that I hadn't maybe thought through or worked through. Like, for example, I thought that I was, at that point when I opened up to you, I thought I was good to go, right? I didn't need any other help or direction. And I think in time I recognized that, no, there were still things that I needed to figure out. And so I think that's the first time that I actually had worked with a therapist. Because after that point, I finally realized, like, okay, there's probably some things that I still need to talk through and work through. And so that was super helpful and really important to me to do that. So, well, I mean, you probably have a lot more to say around this time period. What was challenging for you?
Yeah. So we decided to talk about one topic. So I'm just going to stick to one topic, which is hard for me.
I don't think I agreed to that, but you can.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. Time wise,
agreed.
I think that's wise. So I'm just going to stick to one thing. And so I think one of the things that was really hard was recognizing that you had an internal world that I didn't know about. I think I grew up in a very sheltered religious culture. And I actually grew up in a pretty open family about sex and sexuality, things like that. But still there was this feeling of like just imagining that I was married to a guy who of course was sexual because we were sexual together. But I didn't really know what went on in your head. I didn't have access to that, the world in your mind. And I actually think one of the gifts that you gave me was actually opening up more about that part of your mind, like attractions that you had or temptations that you had or resisted or things like that. And I think that was really, it was dysregulating for me to realize, oh my gosh, like he's attracted to other people and not just me. Which is kind of silly because obviously I'm also attracted to other people and not just you. Right. Are you shocked?
A little bit. I'm joking.
So having that open to me was just a little jarring as far as like, I didn't know what to do with it at first. And
was that a scary experience? Like to recognize that? Was it like, what was hard about it, I guess?
Yeah, I think it was scary in that first of all, I think we are conditioned a bit to think sex is bad or attraction is bad. I think I kind of had those scripts in my mind. I would say that has shifted for me over time, but in the moment I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe he's a bad person for feeling this. I'm sorry that I've made those judgments. But I think it was scary for me, like, what kind of a man is this? And then I started to recognize, oh no, this is just a human who has attractions, desires, appetites outside of that don't belong to me, that are his. And it's really what he does with them that matters.
So was that scary because you were worried about what I was going to do with those? Were you afraid that like...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
like,
Absolutely. Yeah. And to be fair, I know I'm talking to an audience where that has played out, you know, where individuals have acted out on
their desires or fantasies or like whatever it may be.
And it is really scary that we can't control another person. That like, I started to recognize the lack of control that I had over you. That you could choose, and you could choose to leave, or you could choose to be with someone else, and I might not know about it. And that was really scary to me. Yeah. And it's not gone. I mean, the reality is that's always present, right? That can always happen.
Hey there, friends. I know what it's like to be stuck in conflict, and it's not a fun place to be. If that's where you are now, and you're facing something that keeps coming up over and over again, and you're not sure how to get out of it, then you're not going to want to miss my workshop on June 24th. It's on Zoom. You can pay just $39 and you're going to have tools that will last you a lifetime that help you to navigate what feels like perpetual conflict. I'm really excited about this. I hope you will join me. You can do that on my website, www.complexcouplescoaching.com/workshop. Hope to see you there.
I think part of the hard part of relationships, committed relationships, is not allowing your fear to control your actions.
The interesting thing is so was it the subject matter that was a little unsettling at that point, the focus? Because, I mean, there had been moments in life when you were uncomfortable with like your concerns that I might be attracted to other women, right?
Yeah.
You laugh. I mean, one of our earliest, I mean, we disagreed on other things, but like one of our a big fight we had early on was about someone at work that seemed interested in me.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was really unsettling and unhappy to you. And I wasn't interested at all. And it was really baffling to me because I was like, I didn't do anything.
Right.
I wasn't even aware that she was interested until you said she was,
Right.
you know? So clearly you'd been concerned before. So what was different at this point?
That was actually a really hard time in our marriage. So I think it's probably actually really similar situation, right?
I mean, there was an actual threat then,
Yeah, but
right?
felt like
Meaning
it.
there was an actual, like, there was an individual, there was a person
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
involved, someone else. And I'm saying in this situation here, there was no one else in the mix really to speak of that you were worried about, right? It wasn't like there was some guy that had a crush on me.
No,
And so-
not necessarily.
I'm trying to-
But
I
there
just-
but when you disclosed your same-sex attraction, you also talked a lot about kind of difficult situations you'd been in, times where men had hit on you, and you had turned them down, or things like that. And I think it just really was like, whoa,
Just the fact
this
that
could
even
have gone
happens.
differently.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of playing out the what ifs. And I think it was recognizing the fragility of relationship, like meaning I didn't have, just because we were married did not mean I had this hold on you that like meant you were mine forever. You had to choose that too. And I could not control if you did or you didn't. And I think it forced me to confront a little bit about how do I want to show up knowing that. I think I had a false sense of security. And I think all relationships are fragile and face this stuff, but I didn't see it until this started coming up. Does that make sense?
And so was it hard when I talked about experiences I may have had or like near misses or whatever, however you want to say it, was it just hard knowing that there were things there that you hadn't known about or seen before, dangers that you weren't even aware existed?
I mean, part of it was that, oh, he is a sexual being. I know that sounds ridiculous. We were sexual before, but just recognizing that I didn't have access to all of your thoughts. You had your own right to privacy, and I couldn't always know what was there. And that's hard for me because I like to know everything.
So, yeah, how helpful was it to have more access to that? Do you think that it was a good thing to have more access to my thoughts? It was a bad thing? Like, and then after you answer that, I'd be interested in stepping into your thoughts a little bit around almost rights to privacy. Does the spouse need to say everything that's in their brain?
Right. I think that's valid. It's interesting. I really think I liked knowing your mind more, even though it was scary. I don't think I responded well to it at the time always because it was a little bit terrifying and unsettling because like I said, all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is the reality. There is a world outside of me that he could change his mind and have access to at any time. And I can't control that. Even if I'm the best wife in the world, he still might want that. And that was scary. But I think it was also like, there was something really intimate about being invited in, about you sharing more of your thoughts. There's something about you being honest and straightforward with it that was like less scary in some ways because I felt invited in.
It's interesting, I mean, because that time period of our marriage was one where we felt, incredibly close to one another. It seemed that it was kind of a second honeymoon of sorts during that time period. And I think part of that is because when we do share those intimate, for lack of a better word, details of our life, I mean, there is closeness. I mean, I think that is true when anyone shares something that is particularly vulnerable. We can feel closer to them, and I think everyone's probably experienced that. And so I think during that time period where we were both probably pretty open about our feelings and fears and things like that, it definitely drew us closer together.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And many people would assume that the subject matter would have pushed us further apart, but that was the opposite.
Yeah, I think there was really a feeling of knowing each other more on a deeper level, and that felt very unique and special.
So the second part of my question there, which we're going to call this all your one topic that you're going in.
Okay.
What rights do spouses have to the thoughts in their head? Is there a privacy right?
I think, of course, there's a privacy right. I think there's no question about that. I do believe that in my mind, how I define intimacy is actually about being known. It's about allowing ourselves to be seen, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, all of it. And so I think that you limit intimacy when you don't share some of your innermost thoughts. But I also think there is probably a place for secrecy. I think there, yeah.
Is it secrecy or is there some privacy?
I was trying to think privacy. Privacy is more the word I'm looking for. I don't know if
secrecy. I mean, secrecy infers that there's something that should have been disclosed that we talked about that necessarily wasn't, or something that's being hidden.
Yes, I agree.
I mean,
I knew that wasn't the word I was looking for.
I was going to say privacy, I think, is a little different. Okay. Were there things that I shared or said that we thought were helpful or that we were being close that ended up being more hurtful or damaging? This is almost down the line of, is there politeness and wisdom in the things that we talk about or that we need to have more?
It's funny. I don't know. I really wish I could answer this on more solid ground. The truth is, I'm not sure. I think that there are, when lines have been crossed and you're talking about things that have happened between, like, say someone has crossed certain lines and they're talking about things that have happened between them and another partner. I think there can be a courtesy to say, to not disclosing those things, because it I don't know that it leads to good places, right?
Okay.
I don't know that we had that experience.
No, I think in our case, I mean, it may be more like if there were, again, like if there was someone that I thought were particularly good looking, is that like, was that ever hurtful? Like I said, I mean, sometimes I see that, if some guy is attracted to another woman, I could imagine that it could be somewhat hurtful for him to say something about another woman. In our situation, it's kind of weird. Like, it's different because when we see someone, I remember years ago, there was you went to a friend's house and like knocked on the door, and the dad answered the door, and you came home and talked about this dad, and I had noticed this dad before too, like, so we were very both appreciative of the the striking looks of this individual. And so it's kind of this interesting thing that in mixed orientation marriages you have, right?
Yeah.
Where there can be shared appreciation for beauty.
I mean,
but is that something that someone should especially consider and be more thoughtful about sharing, even in this maybe honeymoon phase?
I actually think it really depends on the person, right? It depends on, I think that initially it was hard. I think initially it was hard to hear because I felt so insecure and so threatened, and not knowing if like you wished that you had that. So I think initially that that was a hard thing for me. I feel like the more secure I became and the more confident I became, and like, I know what I'm offering here. I know I'm a good wife to him, and I know I'm not the most attractive wife in the world, but I really believe that attraction is about other things than looks later on. And so I think there's a difference between admiring beauty and lusting after someone. Personally, I think there's a difference.
Yeah, I think there is. So, I mean, that's interesting because I do think that this is an imperfect process, right? And when people are working through this, they're going to say things that are not great, right? That may cause, some stress and difficulty in relationships. But I also think that it's probably a messy process that's worth going through.
Yeah.
To figure it out. Because I think that sometimes people are going to say things that are inconsiderate, that are probably unnecessary, right? It might feel good to them to be able to disclose and say, right? Sometimes if you've hidden things for a really long time, it feels really great to be open and being able to speak freely. But because we haven't done that for much of our lives, some people like me, I think we can be clumsy with that and not very considerate. So
yeah, I was going to say consideration is the word that comes to mind. I think it's really about considering the partner that you're with.
Well, I think you can consider through asking questions.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I think you can kind of explore that by checking and asking, are you interested?
Right.
Knowing more about my experience. Are you interested in knowing about a moment that was hard for me?
I like understanding your mind as much as I can, even though sometimes it scares me.
Yeah.
Even to the point, nothing sexual, but just that you disagree with me. Like sometimes knowing your mind and knowing we don't agree is a scary thing for me. Cause I'm like, well, what does this mean for me if he doesn't agree with this?
Yeah.
So yeah, it goes beyond that. But,
I mean, the thing, like I'll wrap up a little bit here and then let you wrap up. I mean, one of the problems with this topic is that there's no perfect way to do it, right? I mean, there are going to be people who listened and think, well, I think you should disclose and talk about everything. And there are people who will be like, I don't want to know everything, so maybe we shouldn't talk about it. And so I think this is a really personal journey. I think it's really important that people are open and are willing to share with a spouse their thoughts and fears, and on an intimate level that's beyond what you would with random people or friends.
right.
But I do think that there's a learning curve, and people need to figure out what is considerate and kind
Right.
at the same time.
And I would say from a spousal perspective, I think something that was really important for me was increasing my capacity for truth, increasing my capacity for different views and different beliefs or whatever, so that I could make space for like what you thought without feeling like I had to change your mind about things. And quite frankly, that's still a work in progress. I really like to change your mind.
I think we always do, right? We love to have people agree with us and think we're right. So
Right. But okay. Well, thank you for tuning in, and hopefully this was helpful. It is a messy process. There's no perfect way. We are merely sharing what we have experienced. Hopefully it's helpful to you. And if you have any questions or comments, anything you'd like us to talk about, you can email me at heidi@complexcouplescoaching.com. Thanks so much for listening and have a great week.